we had a Eid prayer, and he came to the park looking for me, and a lot of people saw him. And prior to that, he had called his sister to let his sister know that he was gonna come to the park where we were praying, because he knew where the prayer was and he was gonna slit our throats. So she was in a panic. And she called me back. She didn't tell me what he said to her. The only thing that she said is that, Sandra, do not go home. I called the emergency, the hotline, the domestic violence hotline, and I went and filed for the injunction the next day.
Every day, Muslim families living with domestic violence need our help. For Muslims who embrace Allah's command to end abuse, the desire to help, the desire to make peace, is deeply felt. But knowing how to help, how to bring peace to our families, can be challenging and complex.
And that there's a span of time when she first leaves that is sometimes the most dangerous time.
That's also when the batterer is the most angry. And he wants to get her back. He wants to get revenge on her. And he will escalate whatever efforts he's done in the past to make sure she never considers leaving again.
Why can't a woman go and stay with friends? Because one of the things is her security is jeopardized, and the friend's security is jeopardized.
And I was at work, and I had a friend staying at my house, and they were asleep, and he came into the house, and he slashed the furniture. He went all around. So I think finally somebody heard him, and when they came out, I think he took off.
Imams or mediators need to be aware of that she is extremely vulnerable in that situation, because even having a protective order doesn't totally protect her.
Now this woman walked to your office, she's just been beaten and she's bleeding. Okay, what can he do? That's why we need to reach out to other people. People specialize in this. They do this 24 hours a day.
And one of the challenges as a community is that we don't have all of the resources. Many women need shelter. Many women need some type of short-term or long-term financial assistance. These are all infrastructure things that Muslim communities typically don't have.
Partnership is the way to go, because the mosque cannot do it by themselves, nor the direct service provider can do it by themselves. We need this team.
The shelter is the most secure place because we keep locations secret.
Hi, I'm Sharmila. Welcome. Come on in. Hi, sweetie. Come on in.
They are scared to go to the domestic violence shelter. They are scared to ask for assistance.
Your primary language?
And they don't know how they will be perceived as Muslims. My being there gives them that assurance that it's okay. I'm here and I will guide you.
I called the masjid and I told the brothers my children and I were in the shelter and they were having pork. The brothers came and they said to me, "What are you doing in a place like this?" And they brought me money to eat. And I said, "Because the Muslim shelter is closed." I was being facetious, but what was I supposed to do?
But seeking the shelter and protection of a non-Muslim is not impermissible. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sent his own followers who were being oppressed in Mecca to the safety and protection of the King of Abyssinia, who was a just Christian ruler. So that gives us a powerful example of the not only permissibility but desirability of seeking shelter and security even among non-Muslims in order to maintain our life. We can't live our faith if we don't have a life.
And I had the good experience of working at a secular shelter for 4 years. So I've seen all the good, bad, and the ugly of what can happen. And I can tell you that for domestic violence shelters, they're there to provide safety first.
That was the door you came in through. And around the corner here we have the bathroom. This is one of... Okay, this is one of 3
Unfortunately, I think the perception of many shelters is that they're violent, dirty, scary, that there's many things going on in shelter that some people may say is haram, which in the Islamic culture means forbidden.
So, Selma, this is the kitchen. All residents cook.
For some women who come into a shelter, depending on the level of practice, it's a very hard adjustment.
Do you have any questions? Where is the halal meat? That's a great question.
Even those who are moderately practicing or minimally practicing, they probably still will have issues with open showers. Probably still won't eat pork.
Right in here in the freezer, all of this meat is halal. Okay? And we buy it pretty regularly.
If you were at the shelter during the month of Ramadan, they understood that we had to get up before the sun to eat and that we were allowed to eat at a later time. They understood and made provisions that we could go to our rooms during time to make our salat. I find that most people, it's just their lack of knowledge. It's not that they're not willing to be kind, they just don't know.
My job is to provide the spiritual help, emotional support. Do you know it mean a lot to a woman if the imam is the one who called the social service provider? That's why it's very important for me to have the social providers to have a relationship with imams, local imams, because that is where you can really save that woman's life.
I think she's enjoying herself already.
The domestic violence shelter can also be a wonderful experience.
Lots of toys, lots of new friends.
I have seen women in a matter of a week, 2 weeks, change.
But while you're with us, we're going to work very closely with you.
I've seen women walk into a shelter, their soul was gone, or it was very diminished. They were broken people. Having a woman have the safe place that she needs to find her spirit again, and to see that transformation is the best thing in the world.
Domestic violence, for a lot of people, the first safety net, if you will, is the local imam. Unfortunately, very few imams are formally trained to deal with domestic violence, and I would put myself in that category. When I was imam of a masjid, I didn't have any formal training. I had taken some psychology courses and sociology courses. So I think the imam of the future would ideally be trained in the religious realm and in the secular realm.
Like any religious leader, imams have an immense responsibility. Basically, the religious people are speaking in the name of God.
It's a test for the community, how to respond to them. Therefore, it's a test now for Muslims, how to respond to what happened like that.
By what they say and do, imams have the potential to seriously affect the lives of domestic violence victims.
I think the worst thing to do, is just not to believe her and to tell her she needs to go home and be more patient, be a better wife, basically put all the burden on her and send her back home with no resources and no options.
If a person have a bad marriage, for example, their spouse is beating them, is it they have to be patient and say this is a test from Allah? I said, no, they've been tested by this, but the response has to come. The response has to come from me, as Imam of the masjid. The response has to come from family support, has to come from other people.
Through their leadership, imams can help families to understand the dynamics of abuse and how to end it.
I said to the young lady, bring your parents. Let me talk to them. When they hear it from the imam, that the imam says it's okay for her to do that, and I tell them the reason of it, they take this, my word, to empower them. Says, listen, this was not our decision. The imam decision. Imam says so. Therefore, they take the shame from them and they put it on me, which is okay.
Because the male intervention is very important to stop the domestic violence perpetrator. Just women working to help the women is not enough.
And I did say in this mosque, I said, if you beat your wife, it's not your business, it's everyone's business. It's not a private matters, it's a community matters. and make sure that I will intervene in your business. If you don't like me to be in your business, don't do it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go inside now, inshallah.
It was a wonderful speech.
Oh, wonderful.
Enjoyed it.
Shukran.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful information.
I talked about domestic violence today. One brother told me clearly that he said, this is not right. What are you talking about domestic violence? It doesn't exist here. There are many imams who don't like to address the issue of domestic violence as a counseling session or as addressing it on the minbar.
If the person himself who's in a situation of religious leadership is not really practicing themselves, if they're not real, then it's not going to translate into the world. And so the biggest advice that I would have for anybody in that situation is that they have to be living it themselves. I can't counsel people if my own marriage is a wreck. I can't counsel people if my own domestic situation is not well.
It did happen in the Muslim community. There was an imam in our community who physically abused one of the sisters, and we kind of disciplined him, and as a result, many mosques in this area are not allowing him to lead prayers or to take part in nothing like that.
Imam or the board members of the Islamic centers should be proactive and do prevention.
In order to prevent domestic violence, you need to do 5 things. Number 1 is education, to educate people, young people especially, youth, about the importance of relationship.
Premarital counseling, not in terms of how to discover sexually transmitted diseases, etc. No, how to discover yourself, really. What do you want? The word that Qur'an used for love was mawadda, which is mutual love. That's very important, and that issue should be addressed way before marriage.
Number 2 is that to train imams, understanding the emotional, psychological aspect of it, because people don't realize that, and then the legal aspect of it.
It is incumbent on imams to invite people from the law enforcement, to invite people to educate the community so that people know their rights and their limits.
And how to partner with social service providers.
Everybody can't do everything. Identify someone else in the community who is your go-to person to address these issues.
Number 3, empowering women, telling them it is okay to leave your husband if he's been abusive, and to have the imam say that loudly in their speech, Friday sermon. Number 4, we offer them marriage counseling.
I think in addition to premarital counseling, equally important is providing couples with forums in which they can grow as a couple in a healthy and productive way.
Some Muslim husbands, they don't like counseling because counseling empowers women. The minute they have first session of counseling, they get angry, some of them, because they thought the counseling meant to help the woman to be more obedient, submissive. And they asked, they said, why don't you tell her this? I want you to tell her this. I want her to tell. I said, you did not tell me what to tell her.
Whenever I'm even giving the marriage sermon, for example, and conducting a marriage, I'll spend quite a bit of time on highlighting this point and emphasizing the importance of listening to one another.
Number 5, we have to create what I call it a declaration. So you have to declare all as Muslim community together. We're against domestic violence.
But recently we had a domestic violence conference, and most of the imams in the area signed a proclamation denouncing domestic violence in communities.
One of the things that we can do here in the United States is, given that we're coming from many different cultural and ethnic backgrounds and traditions, to encourage them to take from whatever culture they come from the good and to leave aside the bad, and to really forge a new culture, a new tradition of how to relate to one another as husband and wife.
My address to other imams is wake up, face the reality, address this issue, and get involved.
We are a human family. We are combined by family relations as human beings, and we have a responsibility towards each other.
The role of the mosque is crucial, because mosques are supposed to be a place where people seek refuge. They come to with their problems, with their issues, concerns, and expect to find that refuge.
Because this is the thing, that everything had to be in the family, whether you suffered or you were happy or survived or died, it was all within the family. But it's not so anymore. There is no family here to help you. So we are the family.
It is said we are to one another as parts of a building. Wall supports the ceiling, the floor supports the walls. We have responsibilities to each other in the Muslim community to kind of, as they would say in the street, pull each other coat, to let people know what's acceptable and what is not.
There's lots of ways that a mosque can convey a message that there is a no tolerance of violence in this community. And one way is to speak about it, because once somebody speaks about it and names it, people can come forward and tell their stories.
Then the family have pressure. Oh, you ruined your life, you ruined his mother's life and uncle life and everyone. He was providing money and so forth. It become a problem, you know. Therefore, it is sometimes women really need the support group, need other women from the mosque. She need people to say, we can provide for you and so forth, because she might be cut off, really, literally, from her family.
Having resources identified, and in some mosques, the Adams Center is one, there are informational brochures in the women's bathroom. So it's a place where women are going to be anyway, and there's the information that they need, whether it's a phone number of a therapist or a shelter.
Multiple times they had come to me and said, you know, since you work with domestic violence, I know you have that case, and they start with very good intention. Tell us the situation so we can help. So, but at Faith, as like any other organization, we have the confidentiality.
You might find resistance sometimes of addressing the issue of domestic violence because advocates of domestic violence being seen as feminists. And feminism is a threat to religion sometimes, you know, quote unquote. Therefore, we told them, listen, this is not about labeling it. It's about what is right and what is wrong. If it is wrong, it is wrong, no matter who called for fixing it.
There are some people who say, oh, Niswa and Shamim Ibrahim break our homes. They don't do a good job. And so there is hostility, of course, there is. But we just ignore it, you know. People should have the courage to intervene. And that courage has risks. It has risk of loss of friendship. If you are telling your friend, the friend may not want to see you again.
When the brothers have gotten to the point where it's so bad that we out them. And when I mean out them, that means we actually post their name on the board and say, this brother is doing this to sisters, so that gets reaction from a brother. He don't want to see his name up on that board. So he either is going to change his conduct or he's going to leave his community and go somewhere else where they don't know that he has those tendencies. So that has been a deterrent.
But this personal knowledge about his behavior, private behavior, in a public place, and that is the mosque, will be the most effective deterrent for this man to stop his abuse. Because that will be shame and loss of face, that, oh, I'm such a good person and everybody values me, and now this thing is coming out about me, so I better change my behavior. Hopefully he does that.
Backbiting is not permissible in Islam, to talk bad about somebody. But one of the few times where it's permissible to find out the faults of a person is when a sister is getting married to a brother.
It is incumbent on any person, a Muslim, that if you know a person is a wife abuser or a child abuser, and if they want to get married to another person, and you know that, it is your duty to alert the other people of what is not gossip. Because gossip in Islam is when you say things about people who want to keep things privately without affecting others.
If there is someone being tyrannical and practicing dhulm or tyranny against someone else, you should all together, and it's talking to the whole Muslim community, all together work against the aggressor, work against the person who's committing the tyranny, until they become better, until they start to behave properly.
This is a man who has made some mistakes. And what can we do to help him to become a better person? And what can we do to help her to be safe? And if it's possible, if he's willing to change his behavior, what can we do to save this family? And if it's not possible, then what can we do to minimize the fallout as much as possible and get each person the help that they need? But if he has children, those children are always going to be his children. He will always be their father. And I think it's important to have the children see whatever good things are in that man as well, and not for him to be labeled as a perpetrator and that's all that he is.
And we always want to do what's best for the children and also what's best for those that can't protect themselves. That's always been my position. And because God has given him a little more strength than a woman, I worry more about her.
I would say to survivors, each one teach one. Break the cycle. If, like, when you sit down and teach a girl how to make bread, you teach her how not to accept things that are unacceptable.
It's a moral question, and it's a question that you will be asked about on the Day of Judgment. What did you do to prevent this cycle of violence from continuing? What did you teach your children by your actions?
We have ennobled the human being. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We've ennobled the human being. Every human being has a basic dignity and nobility that no other human being can take away from him or her, because that's given by God.
When I'm working with a woman who sees no options and almost believes that this is her destiny, that is very painful for me, particularly for a Muslim woman who isn't hearing what I believe is God's message to her.
Inside of me, I'm thinking, it's my parents' fault. They put me in this situation. I'm complaining to God. Why did I deserve this?
You know, I was feeling so much of less of a person, that I did not have the ability to carry out some of the tenets of Islam.
I wasn't really educated in Islam, so I didn't know. I always heard people saying how it's, haram to leave your home, how it's haram to disobey your husband. And I think just up until like the past few years, where I've been, like researching more, reading more, and going to the mosque more.
I also went and took some counseling, and I think that helped me to then get back more to my faith also. And slowly I started realizing that no, it wasn't my fault. I have done a lot. I have achieved self-sufficiency for my family. I'm working, I'm taking care of the children.
But when I see women who get it, who figure out that no, Islam is not encouraging me to stay in this, and I do have options, and I have resources.
My friend said, why don't you go talk to the Imam? So I went to the Imam. And I told him, I think he was the only one, even out of all my friends, anybody who I actually told everything to. And he says, in Islam, you have the right to ask for a divorce. And then that night, I just thought about what he said. I said, why am I so afraid? And God's gonna understand it. And if God can understand it, then my family can understand it.
I spent a lot of time in prayer, and to realize that, I wasn't doing my Islamic duty by suffering in a home with always swearing, but instead I was doing my Islamic duty to go beyond that and to find my peace after that and be able to create an environment of peace and happiness for me and my son.
And the journey is not about her independence, but it's about finding herself as a Muslim woman, what it means to be a Muslim woman who was created as a Khalifa. A Khalifa is a person, we believe that all of us were created to be God's Khalifa, his representative, his vicegerent on this earth, that she is as equally a Khalifa as any man. And in that she is accountable and she has autonomy, she makes her own choices, and she's intelligent enough to do that. That's the inspiring piece, and I learn a lot from those women.
You have to keep going back to your faith. You have to keep making supplication. You just have to keep praying and keep learning. The more you learn about Islam, and the more you ask for strength, it will be there for you.
You have the right, first of all, as a Muslim woman, to happiness. You have a right to have a life that is full of hope and dreams, where you're able to speak your mind directly and fully, where you're respected for who you are and how you think. A person who's a Muslim woman should expect the very best that's available to her. And in a family situation, family relationship, that's somebody who really wants as much good for you as you want for yourself. And when you see his face, it puts a smile on yours. And if you don't have that, you want to get to that spot.